My name is R.C. Mishra. I am Additional Secretary in the Ministry of Urban Development, Government of India, New Delhi. I've been working in this sector for a little more than a year. Urbanization is such a complex issue that more you try to grapple with it, more and more complex issues come up. And when you are called upon to find a solution to a very complex issue, you sometimes wonder and wish that you had a clean slate to write on it. And developing new cities is something very close to writing on a clean city. It gives you a full freedom and challenge to test your planning and execution abilities. Our next presentation is from Umesh Surpali on Gujarat Financial High-Tech City.
Thank you for the introduction. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank CTBUH to allow me to speak on behalf of Mr. Hari Sankaran, who is the MD ILFS, who are partners in this PPP model of building a city and the partnerships between Government of Gujarat and ILFS. Since morning we've been talking about urbanization and need for new cities. Urbanization, as is very evident on the slide, is a phenomenon that is rapidly assuming unprecedented dimensions, the effects of which would be predominantly seen in the developing world especially. No wonder there's a lot of interest shown by the Western world in promoting or inculcating newer ideas, newer technologies into our cities and into this growing nation. For the first time in history, more than half of the world population, or around 3.3 billion people, reside in urban areas today. This is expected to grow to almost 5 billion by 2030, which roughly means that whatever urban population we have till today is going to triple within next 30 years. The new built-up area projected within 30 years is equal to world's total built-up area till 2000. And it is projected that world will have 10 million plus megacities, 12 of them in Asian development countries by 2025. That is the rate and scale of urbanization. If we can compare Mumbai to other cities, Mumbai holds a mere 5.7% of the total urbanized population, Indian population. But at the end of it, we can look at the kind of congestion and the kind of infrastructure bottlenecks that it faces, which is why there's a new need to invent and there's a need to think about new cities. These are the figures about India. It will grow to about 1.7 billion by 2050. It will add about 1 billion people in Indian cities, as the figures show. And that clearly means that the city capacity will need to grow at least 320% in less than 50 years. So, where does it ring the bells? Urban congestion, I mean, this is becoming a rhetoric, but still it is a problem that we face on a day-to-day basis. It's a severe problem in the wake of inadequate mode of transport, infrastructure. This has been, discussed by all the presenters since morning. So I won't touch upon more on this. But even then, if you look at the economic output that the cities like Mumbai provide, against which what it gets is a kind of minuscule investment into its improvement in infrastructure. Quality of life in Mumbai has worsened since last 10 years. There's a steep decline. Slums have proliferated. Obviously, that is again a debatable problem. Mumbai still ranks the poorest, 163rd to be precise. And this situation is expected to worsen over the next decade, with an expected population increase of around 2 million. The case of Bangalore. The IT boom, as we all are aware, made the city much more contributive in terms of GDP contribution to the nation. Yet the basic infrastructure provisions within the cities, as you can see in the figures, are much worse than the comparable world cities. Some of the recommendations I would like to highlight here made by during the JNNRM. Total additional investment of around $27 billion is envisaged over 7 years, starting from 2005-2006 towards improving urban infrastructure. The Zakaria committee suggests that additional investment requirement of the tune of around $19 billion to eliminate deficiencies in core infrastructure services is envisaged by 2010. The Planning Commission suggests that additional investment requirement in the range of $20 to $28 billion to eliminate deficiencies in core urban services levels by 2010. And the World Bank suggests that investment to the tune of $15 is required between 2007 to 12 in order to improve access to piped water supply and sanitation. The similar projections are for urban transport figures. So what really are the options here? See, the option one is to develop the existing cities in India that, for example, the mega cities, Mumbai, Bangalore, Chennai, Delhi, and taking advantage of their growth. Second is to have new cities. The rationale is India requires new cities, as old cities, even after development, will not be able to take care of urbanized pressure. New cities can be developed with long-term planning, that's the advantage. Or we could develop new towns around old cities and new cities of India, like Mumbai, around Mumbai. Rationale, take off pressures from the old cities, like the new Bombay experiment, at the same time help exploit the economic opportunity of the old cities. So that is explained in the figure there. This is a normal projection where you say that by investing in infrastructure, a land parcel which is farther away from the city would gain much more in terms of its real estate value. So to say that it is by investing in it, investing in infrastructure and investing in amenities, basic amenities, would add to its real estate value. From the proven cases here, like for Shanghai, for example, you can see in the graph over there that before investment in infrastructure, that is before roughly around 91, the growth seems to be a little bit slower. But after that, Pudong, Shanghai, CBD is an example which you can be cited. The improvements in banking, insurance, real estate, and overall GDP has considered, have been improved tremendously. Progress made by Shanghai can be cited as it has coordinated development of transport, housing, infrastructure to minimize congestion, has improved urban standards of living through organized streamlining and use of new financial instruments, brought in industrial consolidation accompanied by land use policies, inducting a shift of industries away from the core areas and permitting mixed commercial and residential use of prime land, has taken measures to ensure adequate supply of entrepreneurship skills and labor from within the municipality and through migration. These are some of the figures on the left-hand side bottom. The improvement in Shanghai's infrastructure services from 91 to 98 in various sectors. More examples of proven cases. The case with Barcelona, the starting point was poor transport and communication systems. City was obscured with old factories. Key infrastructure interventions were made in transport, as has been witnessed in some of the other cities also. Major impetus was modernizing of airports, construction of ring roads and railway stations, improved public infrastructure including sewage, parks and water systems. And that had an obvious impact on the real estate. Housing prices were increased by around 150% in the last 5 years. Over the last 10 years, real estate prices across Barcelona have increased by an average of 150%. Same, I can go on citing the other example, Battery Park City, Dwarka, and some examples. Most of the examples, as expected, are from China. London Dockyard again was a very downtrodden kind of an area, which after declaring it an entrepreneurship zone by the Queen and it being developed into Canary Wharf is now considered to be a very vibrant hub. And no need to say that the prices of surrounding areas have risen significantly. So there's an opportunity here. India is a growth story, but with a strong urbanization trend. As I mentioned in the last few slides, we'll grow to around from 30% now to much more in the coming years, but it's still filled with infrastructure bottlenecks and crumbling urban infrastructure. So there's need to think of an innovative way to overcome these constraints, where the solution, as has been explained by the previous presentations and in the earlier presentations also, is setting up of self-sustaining cities. Self-sustaining not only in terms of infrastructure, but also in terms of governance. But the main point here is that they need not be gated communities. They need not be based on imported values of gated communities. We need not create suburbias here again. There needs to be an identification of core high growth sectors which will act as mere triggers. Cities, as we all know, and as an architect and urban designer, I would dwell more on that, are not one-time acts. Cities evolve over a period of time. Cities are triggered. Cities, you can't say that this is the area and this is my city. In fact, the title, I wish I could have changed this title from high-tech city to something like a trigger. So what would these triggers be? With this idea, there was an identification of these sectors: auto ancillaries, textiles, germs and jewelries, manufacturing, and more importantly, financial services. IT boom everyone has seen, IT, ITS, BPOs and KPOs. So that brings us to a need of a finance city in India. To quote the World Bank, if India builds an international financial center with suitable rules and regulations, the earnings out of financial sector exports will surpass that of IT. So it is expected that what IT did for the major Indian silicon cities, say Bangalore, the same would be replicated by the financial sector. So these, as I mentioned, have been acknowledged as the high growth sectors in India, that is financial services, IT, ITS, BPOs and KPOs. As per the McKinsey study, by 2020, this sector, the financial sector, could provide a potential 10 million to 11 million jobs, and estimated 800 million square feet of office space would be needed. And this would add a GDP contribution of about 15 to 20%. Opportunities are constrained because of infrastructure bottlenecks. That's again becoming a rhetoric, so I won't repeat that. So the solution is setting up self-sustaining cities. I would change it to self-sustaining triggers for self-sustaining cities. A study by a high-powered committee was done to set up IFSC in Mumbai, as you all must be aware. To complement that or to augment that, the government of Gujarat conceived this idea of setting up of a finance city in Gujarat to complement the international as well as domestic financial centers. This obviously was because of Gujarat's inherent strengths, that is traditional business community. This has been a high growth economy, over 10% over the last few years. It's at a pool of commerce, as is thought of as the main talent in Gujarat. It's as a trained manpower. CAs and commerce graduates are outnumber that of engineers and doctors. Active capital markets, Gujarat contributes around 30% of stock market capitalization. Proactive government that everyone knows, the BRT has recently been awarded an international award there. It's the first of its kind project in India. The urban population, unlike the other states in Gujarat, is spread out over a large area, which accounts to about 38%, which is envisaged to To correct that figure, it is 56% by 2050. So these are the key competitive factors that make Gujarat an ideal business destination for developing a financial services center. One is people, as I explained, adequate employable pool in the financial sector and offers a very high potential for inward migration. A lot of people we have been interacting with for the past 2 years have shown a very active interest in coming back. As you know, there are a lot of Gujarati communities in US and UK. We have been interacting with them. The Honorable Chief Minister himself has been taking very keen interest in all this. Business environment has Gujarat, as you must be aware, Gujarat has demonstrated successfully in its forte of providing conducting business environment. The last two Vibrant Gujarat summits, which is held every 2 years, has been extremely successful. There were around 3 lakh crores of MOUs signed, most of them materialized. Infrastructure, a key focus on government infrastructure, continues to contribute to economic development. And it's not just infrastructure for the sake of it. There is also, most of you may not be aware that apart from physical infrastructure investments, there's also a very interesting project called Urban Development, which is becoming a pet project of the government of Gujarat, which will improve social amenities for the rural sector also. And that's the model through which this new CBD or this new trigger is conceived to be built. It's a public-private partnership model. It's an opportunity, as I explained, booming demand in financial and IT services. India's financial capital, Mumbai, is crumbling with infrastructure and lack of any methodically planned and developed world for development. IFSC provides an opportunity for Gujarat to come up in that arena. But as I said, it more than being a different IFSC, it aims at being a support to the other IFSCs in the country. The public-private partnership is between a very proactive state government, that is Government of Gujarat, and ILFS. ILFS, as you know, is a premier institute with a proven track record in infrastructure and financial services. Pioneer in launching infrastructure projects on a PPP model in India. Delhi, Noida is a very good example. And it has a widespread experience in planning and development of large-scale, commercially viable infrastructure projects. Good, yes. Sorry. So I'll just run through. You can visit the website of Gujarat International Finance Tech City to find out more about this. So this is a kind of background onto which the city has been planned to integrate best practices in urban planning. That's the location. It's between Ahmedabad and Gujarat, the commercial and administrative capital. There's also a provision of SEZ with processing, non-processing and domestic tariff area also. As I said, it's a trigger for development. It is not a gated community. It is, in fact, I would like to emphasize here that around 3,000 acres is earmarked as gift to influence zone for a very inclusive and equal kind of a development around it. And there are integrated township planned to the tune of around 27,000 acres around it. As you can see in the map, that speaks about the employment potential. These are the target sectors that are envisaged here. That's where GIFT ranks compared to the other cities. Unfortunately, that is not seen. That's the master plan, but you can see it on the website. And these are the kind of initiatives that are being taken in terms of infrastructure and real estate. Here again, the PPP model is being tried, that whatever infrastructure components are there, like district cooling, like solid waste management, other things are being experimented on PPP model basis. These are the broad infrastructure components that we are looking at. transport vision is to achieve a very difficult vision, in fact, but we are being ambitious to achieve a 90-10 modal split. Again, walkability and smart growth and TOD concepts are there. BRTS would extend to a GIFT. Same with MRT connectivity. I won't go into detail of each of these infrastructure, but largely all the recent trends in green infrastructure and green buildings have been thought of. The same is with robust IT infrastructure. There will be a city command center to govern all these. There is a separate talent study I would like to emphasize here, as that is being done to study the employment. I'll come to the status. We have started work on site, and that is status. Land has been allotted, design is in the process, and GDCR is being finalized, a separate GDCR is being finalized, SEZ approval is approved, and MOUs to the tune of 100 million square feet have already been signed. EC and air clearance have been sought, are being obtained. And site development basically has commenced. That's about it. Thank you.